The chamber was enormous, carved from a single asteroid that had been hollowed out centuries ago. Taemin stood at the human podium, his hands gripped tight on the railing. Around him, representatives from 43 different alien species watched with eyes that ranged from curiosity to outright hostility. The air recyclers hummed quietly, mixing atmospheres that each species needed to breathe. It smelled like copper and something sweet that made his nose itch. High Chancellor Vex rose from his seat. The Orvathi was tall, nearly 3 meters, with skin that shimmered like oil on water. When he spoke, his voice boomed through the translation devices everyone wore. "The Galactic Council recognizes the human delegation," Vex said. His tone made it clear he would rather not. "Ambassador Taemin, you stand accused of leading a species too dangerous for galactic society." Taemin felt his jaw tighten. Too dangerous. The words had been thrown at humanity for 5 years now, ever since humans had figured out faster-than-light travel and started exploring beyond their own star system. Every colony they established, every trade route they opened, brought more complaints to the Council. "We have broken no laws," Taemin replied. His voice was steady, but his heart hammered against his ribs. "Humanity has the right to expand, just like every other species here." A creature that looked like a walking mass of tentacles made a sound like grinding rocks. The translator rendered it as laughter, but not the pleasant kind. "Rights?" the creature said. "You speak of rights when your species has doubled its territory in 5 years? When your military grows faster than any civilization in recorded history?" Taemin opened his mouth to respond, but Vex raised one long-fingered hand. "We will hear the evidence," the High Chancellor declared. The lights in the chamber dimmed. A holographic display activated in the center of the room, floating above the council floor. It showed a human military vessel, sleek and dangerous-looking, bristling with weapons. Then another. Then 100 more. Fleet after fleet appeared in the display. "The human military currently operates 742 warships," Vex narrated. "This is more than the Calixian Empire built in 3 centuries. More than the Torvathi assembled in 500 years. The humans accomplished this in less than a decade. We have enemies," Taemin shot back. "Pirates. Hostile aliens on our borders. We build ships to protect ourselves. Or to threaten others," a voice called from the upper galleries. The hologram changed. Now it showed human soldiers in powered armor, storming through what looked like an alien structure. They moved with brutal efficiency, weapons blazing. Taemin recognized the footage. It was from the Margin conflict, when human colonists had fought back against raiders who had attacked their settlements. "Notice their tactics," Vex said quietly. "They do not merely defend. They annihilate. They pursue enemies to their homes and destroy them utterly. This is not the behavior of a peaceful species." "That was self-defense," Taemin insisted. "Those raiders killed 3,000 colonists, including children. We had every right." "You destroyed their entire civilization," Vex interrupted. His shimmer skin darkened to an angry purple. "You tracked them across 5 star systems. You burned their worlds. Where you found resistance, you showed no mercy. Is this the action of a species that values life?" Taemin felt heat rise in his face. Yes, humanity had pursued those raiders. Yes, they had hit back hard. But what else were they supposed to do? Roll over and die? An elderly Calixian named Thren stood slowly. His scales were gray with age, and he moved with careful dignity. When he spoke, others listened. Thren was one of the oldest beings in the council, and his species had been exploring space when humans were still living in caves. "I would speak," Thren said. Vex nodded permission. "I have studied humanity," Thren continued. "I have read their histories, their literature, their philosophies. They are indeed dangerous, but they are also capable of great compassion, great creativity. Perhaps we judge too quickly." "Your compassion will doom us all," Vex snapped. "Counselor Thren, you are old and wise, but you are also naive. Let me show you something else." The hologram changed again. This time it showed something ancient. Stone structures, clearly built by intelligent hands but weathered by time. Then the image shifted to show skeletal remains. They were humanoid, but not quite human. Taller, with broader shoulders and slightly different skull structure. "These are the predecessors," Vex said softly. "We found their ruins on 14 worlds across the galaxy. They existed 50,000 years ago. They were brilliant, aggressive, and unstoppable. They conquered a quarter of the galaxy in 3 centuries. Taemin stared at the bones. He had never heard of these predecessors. "What happened to them?" he asked. They destroyed themselves, Thren answered before Vex could. They built weapons they could not control. They fought wars they could not stop. In the end, they burned their own worlds to ash. They took 17 other species with them into extinction. The hologram showed more. Planets that were nothing but radioactive wastelands, space stations torn apart by unimaginable forces, and through it all those skeletal remains, always humanoid, always similar to humans. DNA analysis shows a 73% match with modern humans, Vex said. They may have been your ancestors. They may have been a parallel evolution. It does not matter. What matters is this: the galaxy has seen your kind before. We know how this story ends. Taemin felt cold despite the warm air in the chamber. 73% match? That was too close to be coincidence. We are not them, he said firmly. Every species deserves to be judged on its own actions, not on ancient history. Then let us judge your actions, Vex replied. You have been in space for barely 20 years. In that time, you have fought 3 wars, established military bases on 47 worlds, and developed weapons that violate 6 different galactic conventions. Your fusion warheads, your kinetic bombardment systems, your plasma weapons, all of these are banned technologies. Technologies you use yourselves, Taemin countered. I see Orvathi warships equipped with... We developed those weapons over centuries of careful study, Vex interrupted. We understand their dangers. You humans rush forward without thought for consequences. You build first and consider morality later. The debate continued for hours. Species after species stood to voice their concerns about humanity. Some were afraid. Others were angry. A few like Thren urged caution and patience. But the mood in the chamber was clear. The council had already decided. Finally, Vex called for a vote. The question before this council, he declared, is whether humanity should be quarantined to their home system until such time as they demonstrate maturity and restraint. All in favor? Hands, tentacles, claws, and appendages rose throughout the chamber. Taemin counted quickly. 31 species voted yes, all opposed. 9 voted no, including Thren's Calixians. The motion passes, Vex announced. Humanity will be confined to the Sol system. A containment perimeter will be established. Any human vessels attempting to leave will be turned back by force. This council is adjourned. Taemin stood frozen as the chamber emptied around him. Confined. Quarantined like a disease. His communication device buzzed. It was G1, captain of the human diplomatic vessel that had brought him here. Sir, we need to leave now. G1's voice was tight with tension. I'm picking up encrypted military transmissions. Someone's assembling a fleet in the Reach Nebula. A big one. Taemin's blood ran cold. The vote had been a formality. The decision had already been made, and not just to contain humanity. They were preparing for war. He walked quickly toward the docking bay where his shuttle waited. As he moved through the corridors, he passed groups of aliens who stopped talking when they saw him. Their eyes followed him with fear and hatred. Inside the shuttle, G1 was waiting at the controls. Her face was grim. How bad? Taemin asked. 3,000 ships, G1 replied. Maybe more. 17 different species contributing vessels. They're calling it Operation Final Warning. Taemin strapped into his seat as the shuttle launched. Through the viewport, he could see the council station growing smaller behind them. Beyond it, stars stretched in every direction. Somewhere out there, an armada was gathering. An armada meant to cage humanity, or destroy it. He activated his secure transmitter and sent a single message to Earth. They fear us. War is coming. The War Council met in a bunker 3 kilometers beneath Geneva. Admiral Hyunwoo stood at the head of the table, studying the holographic display that showed the enemy fleet gathering in the Reach Nebula. Every few minutes, another ship appeared on the scan. The numbers kept climbing. 3,200 vessels as of 1 hour ago, Hyunwoo said. His voice was calm, but his hands were clenched behind his back. Intelligence suggests the number will reach 4,000 before they move. President Young-soo sat at the far end of the table. He looked tired. The last 3 days had aged him 10 years. Around him, the leaders of Earth's unified government watched the display with varying expressions of fear and anger. Can we win? Young-soo asked simply. Hyunwoo met his eyes. If they come to us, maybe. If we fight smart, use every advantage we have, accept heavy casualties, maybe. But it will cost us everything. Then we negotiate, said one of the counselors, a woman named Soo-jin. We give them what they want. Pull back from the colonies, disarm our fleet. They will not accept negotiation, Taman interrupted. He had arrived an hour ago, still wearing his diplomatic robes, looking haunted. I saw their faces. They have decided we are too dangerous to exist. This is not about territory or weapons. This is about eliminating a threat. We are not a threat, Sujin protested. We are, Hyunwoo said quietly. To them we are exactly what they fear. A young species that grows too fast, fights too hard, and refuses to accept limits. They look at us and see their own destruction. Young-soo rubbed his temples. I want one more attempt at peace. Taemin, go back. Offer them anything reasonable. If they refuse, then... He looked at Hyunwoo. Then we prepare for war. While Taemin prepared for his return journey, Hyunwoo traveled to a facility in the Australian desert. The complex was unmarked, hidden beneath sand and rock. Security was tighter here than anywhere on Earth. This was where they kept Project Prometheus. Dr. Da-yoon met him at the entrance to the main lab. She was young for someone leading such an important project. Barely 30, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. She wore a white lab coat stained with grease and burn marks. Admiral, she greeted him. I assume you are here about the weapons. Show me what you have, Hyunwoo replied. Da-eun led him deep into the facility. They passed through 3 security checkpoints before reaching a massive chamber. In the center sat something that looked like a missile, but wrong somehow. It pulsed with a faint blue light that hurt to look at directly. Fusion plasma warhead, Da-eun explained. When detonated, it creates a reaction similar to a star going nova. The plasma wave expands at 0.3 light speed for approximately 10 seconds. Everything within 100,000 kilometers is vaporized. Everything within 500,000 kilometers is subjected to radiation that will kill any biological life within hours. Hyunwoo stared at the weapon. The Galactic Conventions ban anything like this. Yes, Da-eun agreed. Using these would make us war criminals by their laws. But I should mention that scans of the Armada show at least 4 species are equipped with similar weapons. The Orvathi have something even worse. Some kind of quantum disruptor that tears apart atomic bonds. The conventions only matter when everyone follows them. How many do we have? 73 completed. Production facilities can manufacture 10 more per day if given the resources. Hyunwoo did some quick math in his head. Against 4,000 ships, they would need every advantage possible. Begin full production, he ordered. And Da-eun? Keep this quiet. If our own people knew what we were building, they would call us monsters, Da-eun finished. I know, but monsters are good at surviving. In the Reach Nebula, Warlord Cross stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Justice. He was Orvathi, like High Chancellor Vex. But where Vex was a politician, Cross was a soldier. He had fought in 3 wars across his long life and commanded fleets for 2 centuries. Around his flagship, the Armada continued to grow. Ships of every design imaginable filled the space near the nebula's edge. Torvathi cruisers with their distinctive triple hulls, Calixian dreadnoughts that looked like floating cities, Haxian fighter swarms that moved like schools of fish, and dozens of other species all united by one purpose: stop the humans before it was too late. Cross's second-in-command, a creature named Reth, approached with a data tablet. Sir, the Calixians are having second thoughts, Reth reported. Counselor Thren has been sending messages urging restraint. Thren is a fool, Cross replied. He does not understand what is at stake. Have you read the human histories? They have been fighting each other for their entire existence. War is in their nature. The moment they finish conquering the galaxy, they will turn on each other and burn it all down. With respect, sir, that is speculation. Cross turned to face Reth fully. Is it? I have analyzed every conflict humanity has been involved in since they reached space. 17 encounters with other species. 14 ended in complete victory for humans. 2 ended in negotiated peace that favored humans. 1 is still ongoing. Do you know what is most frightening? They are still learning, still adapting. In 20 years, they have developed tactics that took us centuries to master. He gestured at the display showing the Armada. This force represents the combined military might of 17 civilizations. We outnumber the human fleet 5-1. We have superior technology in most areas. We have the advantage of numbers, experience, and position. And yet, Cross paused. I am not certain we will win. Reth looked shocked. Sir, surely you do not doubt. I doubt everything, Cross interrupted. That is why I have survived this long. Alert all ships. We move in 3 days, and Reth, Tell them to expect the unexpected. Humans do not fight like civilized species. They fight like cornered animals. On the human colony world of Threshold, Captain Jae-hyun prepared his special operations team for deployment. There were 20 of them, all volunteers, all knowing they might not return. Our mission is intelligence gathering, Jae-hyun explained, pointing at a star map. We infiltrate the nebula, get close to the Armada, plant surveillance drones, and get out. Command needs to know their capabilities, their weaknesses, their plans. A young soldier named Hana raised her hand. Sir, what if we are discovered? Jae-hyun smiled grimly. Then we make them regret finding us. Any other questions? There were none. These were professional soldiers. They knew the risks. The infiltration ship was small, barely larger than a fighter, with stealth systems that made it nearly invisible to sensors. They launched under cover of darkness and began the 3-day journey to the Reach Nebula. Taemin's second peace mission lasted less than an hour. High Chancellor Vex refused to even meet with him. Instead, he sent a junior diplomat with a prepared statement. Humanity will surrender all colonies beyond the Sol system. The diplomat read in a monotone voice. Humanity will reduce its military to police forces only. Humanity will submit to permanent council oversight. Humanity will pay reparations for violating galactic peace. These terms are non-negotiable. And if we refuse? Taemin asked. The diplomat finally looked up from his reading. His eyes were sad. Then the Armada will enforce compliance, starting with orbital bombardment of Earth itself. Taemin felt his blood turn to ice. You would commit genocide? We would prevent a greater genocide, the diplomat replied. The one humanity would commit if left unchecked. I am sorry, Ambassador. Truly. But the decision has been made. Back on his ship, Taemin barely made it to his quarters before he started shaking. Ji-won found him there 20 minutes later, staring at nothing. They are going to attack Earth, Taemin whispered. Not our colonies. Not our fleet. Earth. They are going to kill billions of people. Ji-won sat beside him. Then we stop them. How? We are outnumbered, outgunned. Even if we win, the casualties will be. We are human, Ji-won said simply. We survive. That is what we do. We have survived ice ages, plagues, world wars, near-extinction events. We are still here. And we will still be here when this is over. Taemin looked at her. You really believe that? I have to, Ji-won replied. Because the alternative is giving up, and humans do not know how to do that. Taemin sent his report to Earth via encrypted transmission. The response came back within hours. It was brief, signed by Admiral Hyun-woo himself. Message received. All diplomatic options exhausted. Transition to military protocols. Make them regret this. Throughout human space, the military mobilized. Every ship, every soldier, every weapon system went to full readiness. Civilians began evacuating from border colonies, heading deeper into human territory, but many refused to leave. They armed themselves instead, preparing to defend their homes. In the Reach Nebula, Jae-hyun's team successfully planted their surveillance drones. They transmitted everything back to human intelligence. Ship numbers, weapons capabilities, formation patterns, command structures. Then something went wrong. A patrol discovered them. Jae-hyun made the call immediately. Scuttle the ship. Everyone into combat suits. We go dark. The infiltration vessel self-destructed, taking 3 enemy patrol ships with it. Jae-hyun and his team scattered into the nebula, hunted by increasingly angry aliens. They managed to take down 14 more ships before they were finally. Captain Sora stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Defiant, watching the sensor displays with growing dread. The Armada had arrived at the Threshold system, and it was larger than the intelligence reports suggested. Not 4,000 ships, 5,000, maybe more. They filled the space beyond the asteroid field like a swarm of angry insects. Fleet status? Sora asked. Her voice was steady despite the fear crawling up her spine. Lieutenant Minsu checked his console. All 73 ships reporting ready, Captain. Defense platforms are active. Minefield is deployed. We are as ready as we will ever be. 73 ships against 5,000. The math was not in their favor. But Sora had not volunteered to defend Threshold because she thought they would win. She had volunteered because someone needed to slow the enemy down, to buy time for the rest of humanity to prepare. Behind her fleet, the colony world of Threshold orbited peacefully. 3 million people lived there, Most had evacuated, but 200,000 remained, either unable to leave or refusing to abandon their homes. Sora intended to make sure those people survived even if she did not. A communication request came through. Minsu looked at her questioningly. "Put it through," Sora ordered. The view screen flickered to life, showing an alien she did not recognize. It was small, barely a meter tall, with blue skin and too many eyes. It wore elaborate robes that marked it as some kind of diplomat or official. "I am Emissary Fen," the alien announced. "I speak for the Coalition Armada. You have one opportunity to surrender peacefully. Withdraw your forces. Evacuate this system. Allow us to establish a containment outpost. If you comply, no blood will be shed." Sora smiled, though there was no humor in it. "And if we refuse?" "Then you will be destroyed," Fen replied simply. "Captain, be reasonable. You are outnumbered 70-1. This is not a battle you can win. Why die for nothing?" "We are not dying for nothing," Sora said. "We are dying so others can live." "There is a difference." She cut the transmission and nodded to her weapons officer. "Target the emissary's ship. Fire." The Defiant's main railgun spoke, sending a tungsten slug across the void at a significant fraction of light speed. The emissary's ship barely had time to react before the projectile tore through its hull, splitting it in half. Secondary explosions consumed what remained. "Well," Minsu said quietly, "that was certainly a statement." "Let them know what they are dealing with," Sora replied. "All ships, battle stations, prepare to engage." The Armada responded exactly as she expected. Ships began advancing, weapons charging, fighters launching. They came forward in organized formations, confident in their superior numbers. Sora waited until they were exactly where she wanted them. Activate the minefield. Thousands of mines, each one hidden among the asteroids, suddenly powered up and accelerated toward the enemy fleet. They were simple weapons, really. Nuclear warheads with basic guidance systems. But there were so many of them, and the enemy was packed so tightly together. The explosions lit up the darkness like new stars being born. Ships died by the dozens, then by the hundreds. The carefully organized formations dissolved into chaos as vessels tried desperately to avoid the mines, while also maintaining position. "First wave successful," Minsu reported. "Enemy casualties estimated at 400 ships. They are regrouping." Sora watched the display. 400 ships gone, and the enemy still outnumbered her 60-1, but it was a start. All ships split into hunter groups. Tactics pattern Delta. Do not let them pin us down. Her fleet broke apart, scattering into the asteroid field. 17 groups of 4 or 5 ships each, moving independently, striking and retreating before the enemy could respond effectively. The battle became a brutal dance of thrust and counter-thrust. Human ships would emerge from behind asteroids, fire their weapons, then disappear again before the return fire arrived. They used the terrain, used their smaller size and better maneuverability, every advantage they could find, but the numbers were too much. Slowly, inevitably, the human ships began to fall. The destroyer Courage took a direct hit from an energy beam that cut it in half. The cruiser Steadfast was swarmed by fighters and torn apart by repeated strikes. The frigate Hope ran out of missiles and rammed an enemy dreadnought, both ships dying in the collision. One by one, Sora's fleet was being destroyed. "Captain, we have lost 40% of our forces," Minsu reported. His voice remained professional, but she could hear the strain. "Estimate we have destroyed approximately 800 enemy ships." 800. Sora did the math. That meant her 73 ships had managed to destroy over 1,000 enemy vessels in total. An impressive exchange rate, but it did not matter. There were still more than 4,000 ships bearing down on them. "How long until reinforcements arrive?" she asked. "Admiral Hyunwoo's fleet is 6 hours out," Minsu replied. "We just need to hold for 6 more hours." Sora looked at her tactical display. They would not last 6 hours. They would be lucky to last one. "Send a message to all ships," she said. "This is Captain Sora. You have all fought with honor and courage. You have shown the enemy that humans do not surrender easily. But our time is running short. I am implementing Final Protocol." Final Protocol. The order that every captain dreaded and hoped they would never have to give. Minsu turned to look at her. "Captain, are you certain?" "I am certain we cannot let them reach threshold," Sora replied. "Not while those 200,000 people are still evacuating." "Execute the order." Throughout the fleet, captains received the command and understood what it meant. Any ship that was too damaged to continue fighting would not retreat. would not surrender. Instead, they would charge directly at the enemy and self-destruct, taking as many alien ships with them as possible. The heavy cruiser Vengeance was the first. Its engines were damaged, weapons mostly offline. Instead of drifting helplessly, it fired all remaining thrusters and accelerated toward a cluster of enemy ships. The crew had 30 seconds to evacuate in life pods, but most chose to stay. When the Vengeance's reactor detonated, it destroyed itself and 7 enemy vessels in a ball of nuclear fire. Then the destroyer Relentless followed. Then the frigate Unbreakable. Then the corvette Swift. The enemy began to understand what was happening. They tried to fall back to avoid the damaged human ships, but that only gave the undamaged human vessels more opportunities to strike. Sora's fleet became like a wounded animal, more dangerous as it died, lashing out with everything it had. "Captain, direct hit to our port side," Minsu announced. Armor breached. Multiple hull sections open to space. "We are venting atmosphere." Sora felt the ship shudder beneath her feet. Emergency alarms wailed throughout the bridge. Damage report? Engines at 40%. Weapon systems failing. Life support compromised in sections 7 through 12. Minsu paused. "Captain, we cannot continue fighting much longer." Sora nodded slowly. She had known this moment would come. She looked around her bridge at the men and women who had served with her for 3 years. Young faces, old faces, all watching her and waiting. "Minsu, how many enemy ships are within 5 kilometers of our position?" Minsu checked his sensors. 17, Captain, including what looks like their command carrier. Perfect. Sora activated the ship-wide communications. "All hands, this is the captain." "Abandon ship. You have 3 minutes to reach the escape pods." "That is an order." She looked at Minsu. "You too, Lieutenant. Get your people out of here." Minsu stood but did not move toward the exit. "With respect, Captain, I am staying." "That is not a request, Lieutenant. And this is not a debate, Captain." Minsu smiled. "You will need someone to operate the sensors for the final approach. Besides, someone needs to make sure you do not miss." Sora wanted to argue, to order him off her bridge, but she knew that expression. She had worn it herself many times. The look of someone who had made their final decision and would not be moved. "Very well. Everyone else, evacuate now." The bridge crew hesitated only a moment before obeying. They filed out quickly, some casting final glances back at their captain. Within 2 minutes, only Sora and Minsu remained on the bridge of the dying Defiant. "All personnel have evacuated," Minsu reported. "Escape pods are launching." Sora gripped the helm controls. The Defiant responded sluggishly, damaged systems barely holding together. But it still had engines, still had a reactor, and it still had momentum. "Target acquired," Minsu said. "The command carrier is directly ahead. 3 kilometers and closing." Sora pushed the engines to maximum. The ship groaned and shook, but it accelerated. 2 kilometers. 1 kilometer. The enemy command carrier was enormous, easily 10 times the size of the Defiant. She could see its weapons turning toward her, energy building for the killing shot. It did not matter. She was already too close. "It has been an honor serving with you, Captain," Minsu said quietly. "The honor was mine, Lieutenant." 500 meters. 300. 100. Sora reached for the reactor override, the control that would cause it to detonate catastrophically. Her hand hovered over the button for just a moment. She thought of her family back on Earth, her parents who had been so proud when she joined the fleet, her younger brother who always looked up to her. Would they understand why she did this? Would they forgive her for not coming home? Admiral Hyunwoo received the report from Threshold, while his fleet was still 3 hours out. He read it twice, then closed his eyes for a long moment. 59 ships lost, over 40,000 personnel dead or missing. Captain Sora and most of her command staff among the casualties. But the enemy had lost 1,300 ships, and Threshold still stood. "Send a message to all vessels," Hyunwoo said quietly. "Captain Sora and her fleet bought us time with their lives. We will not waste it. Prepare to implement the human doctrine." His second-in-command, Commander Dongmin, looked up sharply. "Sir, the doctrine has never been tested in actual combat." "Are you certain?" "I am certain that conventional tactics will not work against an enemy that still outnumbers us 10 to 1, Hyunwoo replied. "The doctrine is our only chance." The human doctrine had been developed over the past 10 years by military strategists who understood one simple truth. Humanity could not win a fair fight against a galactic coalition. They were too new, too small, too outnumbered. So they had studied every war in human history, looking for lessons from the underdogs who had won against impossible odds. What they found was that the losers fought by the rules. The winners fought to survive. The human doctrine threw away the rulebook entirely. While Hyunwoo's main fleet advanced, scattered across human space, other operations began. Captain Sung-ho led a small force of raiders equipped with stealth ships and experimental drives. Their mission was simple: destroy everything the Armada needed to function. They struck supply convoys first. The aliens had established a long logistics chain stretching back to their home territories. Ships carrying fuel, ammunition, food, repair equipment. Sung-ho's raiders hit them without warning, emerging from faster-than-light travel directly on top of their targets. The first convoy never knew what happened. One moment it was traveling peacefully through interstellar space. The next, 8 human ships appeared and opened fire at point-blank range. Within minutes, 17 supply vessels were burning debris. Then the raiders jumped away before reinforcements could arrive. They struck again 6 hours later. Then again. They cannot protect every convoy, Sung-ho explained to his crew. They do not have enough warships to escort every supply run. So we make them afraid. We make them uncertain. We force them to dedicate more and more resources to protecting their rear areas. The strategy worked. Within 3 days, the Armada was having serious supply problems. Warlord Cross was forced to detach over 500 ships to protect his logistics, weakening his main fleet. On the colony world of New Busan, Private Hyejin prepared her troops for a different kind of battle. The Armada had captured the world 2 weeks ago. Thinking it would be an easy occupation, they were wrong. New Busan's colonists had not evacuated. Instead, they had gone underground, literally, into the extensive tunnel networks they had built for mining operations. Now those tunnels were fortresses, filled with armed civilians and military personnel who had no intention of surrendering. Hyejin led a platoon of 40 Marines. Their mission was to make the occupation so costly that the enemy would wish they had never landed. The aliens established a command center in the capital city. 3,000 soldiers guarded it, along with heavy weapons and air support. It should have been impregnable. Hyejin's team infiltrated through the storm drains. They moved silently, using equipment that masked their heat signatures and muffled their sounds. It took them 6 hours to reach a position beneath the command center. "Plant the charges," Hyejin whispered. "We have a 10-minute window before the next patrol." Her team worked quickly, attaching high explosive charges to the structural supports of the building above, enough explosive to bring the entire structure down. When they were finished, they retreated back into the tunnels. The detonation killed over 200 enemy soldiers and destroyed critical communication equipment. Before the survivors could recover, civilian fighters emerged from hiding and attacked the confused aliens with small arms and improvised weapons. The battle lasted 14 hours. When it was over, the human forces had melted back into the tunnels, taking their wounded with them. They left behind over 600 alien casualties. The next day, they struck at a different location. Then another. "We do not need to defeat them militarily," Hyejin told her troops. "We just need to make them bleed. Make them afraid. Make them realize that holding this world costs more than it is worth." The tactic was repeated on every occupied world. Humanity had learned from thousands of years of insurgent warfare. Learned that an occupying force that could not tell friend from enemy, that was constantly under attack, that never felt safe, would eventually break. The aliens began executing civilians in retaliation, burning entire neighborhoods suspected of harboring fighters. The brutality was meant to intimidate the human resistance into submission. It had the opposite effect. For every civilian killed, 10 more joined the resistance. For every home burned, 100 more fighters emerged from the shadows. The occupation forces found themselves trapped in an endless cycle of violence that they could not win. Meanwhile, Dr. Dayun put the final touches on the most controversial weapon in humanity's arsenal. The fusion plasma warheads were ready, 217 of them, each capable of sterilizing an area the size of a small moon. "Are we really going to use these?" her assistant asked nervously. "They violate every civilized convention of warfare. The enemy brought a fleet to exterminate us," Daon replied. "Civilization is a luxury we can no longer afford. Distribute the weapons to Admiral Hyunwoo's fleet, with authorization codes locked to his personal command only." Admiral Hyunwoo's fleet finally engaged the main armada near the Kepler station, a human outpost in deep space. The enemy still had over 3,000 ships. Hyunwoo had 600, but he had the weapons Daewon created. The battle began conventionally enough. Ships maneuvering, weapons firing, shields absorbing impacts. The aliens fought with practiced coordination, their formations tight and disciplined. They had centuries of experience in space warfare. Then Hyunwoo gave an order that made his own officers question his sanity. All ships, full advance, maximum acceleration. Ram the enemy formation, sir. Dongmin looked at him in shock. A ramming attack? That is suicide. That is the point, Hyunwoo replied calmly. They expect us to fight at range, to use tactics they understand. Instead, we do the unexpected. We charge straight at them. Make them panic. Make them scatter. Then we use the special weapons. The human fleet accelerated to maximum velocity, bearing down on the enemy formation like a hammer. The aliens, expecting a conventional battle, were caught off guard. Their formation began to break as ships tried to avoid collision. That was when Hyunwoo released the fusion plasma warheads. The weapons detonated in the heart of the enemy fleet. The initial explosions were blinding, miniature stars born in the void. Then the plasma waves expanded, moving at a third the speed of light, washing over everything in their path. Ships did not just die. They ceased to exist, vaporized at the atomic level. The plasma was so hot that armor meant nothing. Shields meant nothing. Entire squadrons vanished in instants. When the light faded, over 800 enemy ships were gone, simply erased from existence. The survivors were in chaos, their formations completely destroyed, their morale shattered. They had never seen weapons like this, had never imagined such destructive power. Hyunwoo's fleet pressed the advantage, firing conventional weapons into the confused mass of enemy ships. The battle became a slaughter. The aliens tried to retreat, but the humans pursued relentlessly, giving them no chance to regroup. By the time it was over, another 1,000 enemy ships were destroyed. The Armada had lost over 3,000 vessels in total, more than half their original strength. But the victory came at a cost. The images of those fusion plasma detonations were broadcast across the galaxy. Every species that saw them understood what humanity had done. They had used weapons that even the most brutal civilizations considered too terrible for warfare. Counselor Thren sent a message to Earth that same day. His face on the view screen looked ancient and sad. "What have you done?" he asked simply. "You have proven them right. You have shown the galaxy exactly what they feared. A species too dangerous, too willing to use terrible weapons, too willing to commit atrocities in the name of survival." Ambassador Taemin received the message and felt a weight settle over his shoulders. Thren was right. Humanity had won the battle, but at what cost? They had become the monsters the aliens accused them of being. But when he voiced these concerns to President Young-soo, the president's response was cold. "We are fighting for our survival," Young-soo said. "For the survival of our species. If that makes us monsters, then so be it. We will be monsters who survive rather than martyrs who die with clean consciences." Warlord Cross retreated with what remained of his armada, barely 1,500 ships limping back toward the Reach Nebula. He had lost over 3/4 of his fleet. Lost thousands of ships, hundreds of... The Reach Nebula glowed with the light of dying stars and burning ships. Admiral Hyunwoo stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching as the remnants of the alien armada made their final stand. Warlord Cross had chosen this place deliberately. The same nebula where the armada first assembled would be where it made its last fight. Enemy fleet holding position at the nebula's core, Commander Dongmin reported. Approximately 1,200 vessels. They have formed a defensive sphere and appear to be waiting for us. Hyunwoo studied the tactical display. His own fleet had grown during the pursuit, reinforcements joining from across human space. He now commanded nearly 900 ships, still outnumbered but not by much. And more importantly, the enemy was exhausted, demoralized, running low on supplies thanks to Captain Sung-ho's relentless raids. "Open a channel to Warlord Cross," Hyunwoo ordered. The view screen flickered to life, showing the Orvathi commander. Cross looked older than his image files suggested. His shimmer skin had lost its luster, turned dull and gray. His eyes were haunted. "Admiral Hyunwoo," Cross said. His translator rendered his voice as weary. "Have you come to witness our destruction?" "I have come to offer terms," Hyunwoo replied. Surrender now. Your crews will be treated according to the conventions of war. They will be repatriated to their homeworlds when hostilities end. You have my word. Cross laughed, a bitter sound. And what of me? What of the commanders who led this fleet? Will we also be repatriated? Or will we face trial for war crimes? That will be decided by a neutral court, Hyunwoo said.
But yes, you will face justice for the civilians killed on our occupied worlds.
For the attempted genocide of our species. Justice, Cross repeated. A peculiar word from the species that used fusion plasma weapons. From the species that turned surrender into a weapon, ramming disabled ships into our formations. From the species that treats every battle as if it is the last battle of their existence. Hyunwoo felt his jaw tighten. You brought an armada to exterminate us. Did you expect us to fight gently? To follow rules you yourselves violated? You wanted to see what humans are truly capable of. Now you know. Cross was silent for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was softer. We were afraid, he admitted, afraid of what you might become. We looked at your history, your violence, your rapid expansion. We saw the predecessors reborn, a species that would consume the galaxy and destroy itself in the process. So you decided to destroy us first, Hyunwoo said. Congratulations. You created exactly what you feared. We were content to explore, to trade, to coexist. You made us into weapons. I know, Cross replied. I know that now. But it is too late for regrets. My superiors demand I fight to the last ship. High Chancellor Vex believes that if even one human vessel survives, your species will hunt us across the stars for revenge. He is probably right, Hyunwoo admitted. After what you did, after the friends we lost, the homes burned, the lives destroyed. Yes, there will be those who want revenge. But that is not why I am here. I am here to end this war before more people die needlessly. Cross shook his head slowly. I cannot surrender. My government has made it clear. We fight until we win or until we are destroyed. Those are the only options. Then I am sorry, Hyunwoo said. Truly sorry. He closed the channel and turned to Dongmin. All ships begin final approach. Rules of engagement are free, but any ship that signals surrender is to be spared. I want it known that humans show mercy to those who ask for it. The battle began as the human fleet advanced into the nebula. The enemy opened fire first, energy beams and missiles streaking through the ionized gas clouds. The nebula itself became part of the battlefield, its dense matter interfering with sensors and making targeting difficult. Hyunwoo's fleet split into battle groups, each one attacking from a different vector. They had learned during the long pursuit. Learned that the aliens fought best in organized formations with clear command structures. So the humans made the battle as chaotic as possible. Ships dove through the nebula clouds, appearing and disappearing randomly. They struck at weak points, concentrated fire on command vessels, then scattered before the return fire could be coordinated. It was the opposite of how civilized species fought space battles. And that was exactly the point. The enemy formation began to crack. Individual ships found themselves cut off from their squadrons, fighting alone against multiple human vessels. Some tried to retreat deeper into the nebula. Others tried to break through the human lines and escape. Very few succeeded. On the bridge of his flagship Eternal Justice, Warlord Cross watched his fleet die around him. His officers called out damage reports, casualty figures, requests for orders. But what orders could he give? The humans were everywhere and nowhere, striking from unexpected angles, using tactics that violated every principle of proper naval warfare. Sir, the left flank has collapsed, his second-in-command Reth reported. We have lost contact with over 200 ships. The humans have broken through. Cross nodded slowly. He had known this moment would come. Had known since the Battle of Kepler Station that this war was lost. But he had his orders. Fight until the end. All remaining ships form on my position, Cross commanded. We will make our final stand here. The surviving vessels of the Armada, barely 600 ships now, rallied around the Eternal Justice. They formed a tight sphere, weapons facing outward, prepared to sell their lives dearly. The human fleet surrounded them. Admiral Hyunwoo watched the enemy formation on his tactical display. They were trapped, outnumbered, with nowhere to run. This would be the killing blow. One final attack and the war would be over. But the cost kept rising through his mind. The casualty reports that came in daily, Captain Sora and her fleet at Threshold, the civilians killed on occupied worlds, the soldiers lost in countless small battles, the crew members who would never go home. How many more needed to die? He opened a channel, broadcasting on all frequencies. This is Admiral Hyunwoo of the United Earth Defense Fleet. To all ships of the Armada, your commanders have led you into a war they cannot win. They have spent your lives for a cause that was unjust from the beginning. But you are not your commanders. You are soldiers who followed orders, who did your duty. I am offering one final chance. Any ship that powers down its weapons and signals surrender will be spared. You have my word of honor. The war ends now for those wise enough to accept it. For a long moment, nothing happened. The two fleets faced each other across the glowing nebula, weapons charged, waiting. Then one ship in the alien formation powered down its weapons. A Calixian cruiser, its hull scarred by previous battles. Its captain sent a simple message: "We surrender." Then another ship followed. Then 3 more. Then 10. Warlord Cross watched his fleet dissolve around him. Ships that had fought so hard, suffered so much, choosing surrender over pointless death. He could not blame them. They had already given more than anyone had a right to ask. "Sir," Reth said quietly, "perhaps we should also—" "No," Cross interrupted. "I gave my word to fight until the end. I will not break it now." "Then you will die for nothing," Reth said. There was no judgment in his voice, only sadness. "Perhaps," Cross agreed, "but I will die with honor." He turned to his crew. "Anyone who wishes to surrender may do so. Take the shuttlecraft and evacuate. I will not think less of any who choose life over duty." Most of the crew remained, but some left. Cross did not stop them. When only a skeleton crew remained, he addressed the few ships that had not surrendered, perhaps 100 vessels still loyal. "This is Warlord Cross. Those who remain, I thank you for your loyalty. We have fought well, though we fought for the wrong cause. Let our final act be to prove that we, at least, were not cowards." The remaining ships of the Armada charged toward the human fleet, weapons firing. It was a desperate, hopeless attack, but it was made with courage. Ships died quickly under the concentrated fire of the human vessels, but they did not waver. The Eternal Justice was the last to fall. Its hull breached in a dozen places, engines failing, weapons destroyed. Cross stood on his burning bridge and watched the human ships close in. "Reth," he said to his second-in-command, "I was wrong. About everything. About humans, about this war, about what honor truly means. I hope someone learns from my mistakes." "What shall I tell them?" Reth asked. "What lesson should I share?" "Tell them," Cross said slowly, "that fear is a terrible foundation for policy. Tell them that trying to cage a dangerous species does not make you safe. It makes you a target. Tell them that humans, when threatened with extinction, become something far more dangerous than anything we imagined." The final shot came from Admiral Hyunwoo's flagship, a precision strike that destroyed the Eternal Justice's reactor. The explosion was quick, at least. Cross and his remaining crew died instantly. In the aftermath, the battlefield fell silent. Of the original 5,000-ship Armada, barely 400 vessels survived and all had surrendered. The rest were debris, scattered across the nebula like metallic snow. Admiral Hyunwoo ordered the ceasefire and began coordinating the surrender. Enemy crews were transported to designated holding areas. Wounded received medical treatment. The dead, both human and alien, were recovered for proper burial. The war was over.